Grief is a real powerful thing, man. That bitch real powerful. When you've lost the only reassurance you have in your life, grief is a powerful thing. When you're in that corner of nothingness and it feels like you've truly lost it all, grief is an amazingly powerful thing. Grief makes you want to use any and everything in your power to drown that blackened and marred emotion. Grief is staying up to watch videos because you know your mess of hyper-emotional thoughts and crippling loneliness is just gonna keep you up at night anyway. Grief is having no appetite unless it's a drug-induced one, even when you know you should be eating and even when you've been trying to force yourself to eat. Grief is hoping that you become one of those highly unrealistic statistics, just so you don't have to deal with it anymore. Grief is gaming and smoking all day because there's simply no motivation left in your lonely life to keep you pursuing. Grief is the unfortunate condition of having an incredibly inconsistent drive to do anything beyond your immediate needs and your most immediate comforts. Grief is simply giving and giving and giving in hopes that it prompts life to give something back to fill that blackened, empty hole. But truly, grief is not realizing that you are giving to the wrong thing. Grief is being unable to realize that in order to get past those slews of waves of loneliness, of depression, feelings of inadequacy, and utter disgust with every aspect of yourself, physically, mentally, morally, emotionally, you must first begin to give to yourself, to love yourself. I think grief is being unable to realize that you have to give that love to yourself before you can expect others to give that love to you. This is my grief. And this multi-chapter series will be overviewing how I've begun my journey to evolve beyond this grief. How I have evolved past my mistakes, struggles, and anything else. As well as what I'm still evolving, developing, and molding about myself as a person, my characterization, my progress. The camera will be my outlet, because if it's not, I'm going back to the old me. Wait a second, for real? That's how my lighting been the whole time? Bruh. Well, shit. Also, to be honest, I thought I was feeling this, but nah. Now that's what the fuck I'm talking about. So anyways, I want to go ahead and start this story with perhaps the most pivotal moment in me realizing that there was something wrong with myself in the first place. My first ever acid trip. 20 hours of a maddening forced meditation. 20 hours of being unable to hide from or hide away my insecurities, my depressions, my anxieties, just the feelings that were deep in me that I never confronted. That's what my first acid trip did to me. It really hit me with that state of forced meditation. It was 20 hours of having my very carefully crafted rose tinted glasses just just torn off my fucking face. Like, damn. Just 20 hours of revealing every last crack in the mirror. Let me go ahead and take y'all through my 1 milligram acid trip, start to finish.
The drip is forever, I oozing this shit. Niggas be towing the grip without using the bitch. Bitch, they forward be puching the shit. Trying to be cute.
Let's fast forward to a time much more recent. December of 2018. I take you back to the very night where I rolled up those Dutch Masters on stream. If you were there for that stream where I rolled up those super big cigars on stream, then you were with me for at least the first 20 minutes of my acid trip. Just saying. So anyway, yeah, like I said, I got this pack of Dutch Masters. It was 4 of them, and I had a ½ ounce. I went ahead and basically used the entire ½ ounce to roll through those 4 cigars. I rolled them up with an 1/8 each. And I proceeded to smoke 2 of them on stream that night. Now, little did my viewers know, that was only pre-game for the entire milligram of LSD I would be having pretty soon. Now, some of you psychonauts are probably out there thinking, the entire... Hold on, let me pause this. Now, why the fuck would he go in on his first time high as fuck off 7 to 8 grams of weed and with the heroic dose like 1 milligram? This nigga's stupid. Look, alright, I was up keeping a history of introducing myself to things on heroic doses, alright? But that's another story for another video. So I'll go ahead and have myself a good old time on that stream. I'm sitting here smoking out these fat ass cigars of weed, talking to my pops, Shaded Whisper. If you know him, you know him. Come on, dude. Shaded, what do you think about this, man? I'm high as shit, what's up? Love you, Dad. Anyways, about 30 minutes before the end of that stream, I cut my BRB screen on, mute my mic's output on stream, and I proceed to camera myself to my pops on Discord, me swallowing the entire milligram. Now, let's pause real quick. If you don't know what acid looks like, okay? It usually comes in like a smooth gel pill. Like, I'm sure you've taken medicine at some point in your life and you've had a gel pill. Most people probably have. Or it comes in these like paper tablets, these like little thin paper tablets. I received 2 500 microgram tablets. The thing is though, I did not know that these 2 tablets would come stuck together with only like the slightest perforation. Like, as a first timer, high as shit off the like 7 to 8 grams that I just smoked, there was no way I was gonna open that and see the very tiny perforation that it had. In my mind, I thought I was just taking the 500 micrograms, and that's what I intended to do. And I thought that there was just gonna be like another 500 microgram tablet somewhere else in my purchase. What I didn't realize was, bitch, that was both of them. Both of them right there. So little did I know, as I popped those there on camera, letting them dissolve in my mouth for about 30 seconds before swallowing them, I would not be taking 500 micrograms like I intended. No, I just swallowed the entire fucking milligram. That's gonna be a fucking big yikes for me, man. Jesus. Okay guys, so for this part, I'm not gonna script. I feel like it was just too raw of an experience to script. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to relive this as best as I can off the top of my head and hope to God that if I fuck up too much, I can fix it in editing. No, but on a real note, I wanted to go ahead and do this way because I feel like it was just a lot more special to relive the moment, you know, in the moment rather than script it and then try to memorize that for the camera. So back from where we left off, I did pop those tabs on Discord with Shaded, and then I went ahead and turned off the BRB screen. I want to say maybe 20 minutes passed before I started to notice the first effects. And the first effects I actually noticed wasn't anything that changed my perception of reality, but rather changed how I felt. And what I mean by that is I just out of nowhere, and if you're a psychonaut, you'll know this is just a package deal with psychedelics. Just out of nowhere, I get hit. So like I was saying, if you're a psychonaut, you know, it's just a package deal with psychedelics, but out of nowhere, I just got hit with this really incredibly intense feeling of dread. It was just dread. Like, there is no other way to put it. It was dread. I just felt like something bad was gonna happen. And that feeling is actually what pushed me to end the stream that night. And I proceeded to just talk with Shaded normally after the stream had ended. Eventually, the weed began to take its toll on my body. I had picked up a hybrid, by the way, not a sativa or an indica, but with how much I smoked, it may as well have been fucking indica, to be honest. The weed did start to kick in, and I got pretty tired. So as I do, instead of accepting my defeat and saying that I'm tired and going to bed, you know, also the fact that I literally just ingested some new drugs I would like to experience, no duh, I go ahead and just decide to rest my eyes. We all know the quote. Decide to go ahead and just rest my eyes right down on my desk. And this is where, like, this was pretty much the first, I want to say, 2-ish hours of my trip. Was just these like 15-minute intervals where it would be 5 to 10 minutes of sleeping and then 5 minutes of realizing that Shaded was trying to talk to me, waking up and trying to speak back with him again. All while trying to grasp how the fuck to operate underneath this new high. Seeing my perception of reality change was it was just crazy. It was like, and especially because I kept picking my head up and down from off the desk, it was just absolutely insane. Like, every time I picked my head up, like, reality would distort more and more, and it was fucking bizarre. However, eventually I did actually fall asleep. I kind of woke back up in like this very lucid state. To give you some context as to why I know what I did that night was a bad idea, I had gotten home from the gym. I had just worked 8.5 hours off like 3 hours of sleep, an 8.5 hour shift. So I'm home. I'm not only am I like tired mentally from work, exhausted physically from the gym, but I've also smoked a ton of weed, and then I went to go ahead and try this drug I have never experienced before. Yeah, probably not, you know, the smartest sequence of events I could have done for my first time. All those factors considered is why I believe the next part of the trip was so lucid, and why it's so hard for me, even to this day, to remember exactly and specifically what I was doing for a lot of it. However, we are gonna go over the most pivotal moments. Now, I just want to take a quick pause and say that I didn't quite understand this trip or what my feelings meant throughout it for a little while. I want to say I didn't like confirm for myself personally what I was feeling during that trip until like maybe my third acid trip, and that was maybe, I want to say 3-4 weeks down the line. However, I am gonna go ahead and give you a mixture of my present thoughts on like that trip and what I was actually thinking at the time. So I do finally like lift my head up, and this time I'm not really awake, but I feel a little bit more energized because like I had said, I actually fell asleep this time. I was sleeping for probably about an hour because I remember the clock was like 1 something, and when I woke back up, and I remember this time specifically when I woke back up, it was 2:25. Why do I remember that? Because at that time I was so high that when I looked at those numbers, until I like seriously focused on it, they all looked like the same fucking number, and I couldn't tell if it was a 2, 7, or a 5. So yes, that is why I remember exactly what time I woke back up on, because I had to focus on that clock for like a good 40 seconds before I saw the time. I didn't like just everything to me felt so weird and surreal. I fell asleep with like basically only one light on, so it was very dark. I could see how it was changing my perception of reality, but for some reason I was just like too tired or too I don't know, I was just too tired and exhausted to really want to like play around with it a lot. What I had ended up doing instead was I literally just sat at my computer and like, you know how sometimes streamers will have their own stream open? I literally just like watched the person I was auto hosting, like that's all I did, and I sat there and I was just like a fucking vegetable. Holy shit, this is acid. Oh my fuck. What the fuck? And I mean, that was all nice and interesting for a little while, but then like the feeling of dread came back, and I started having like these really nagging thoughts. I just started thinking shit like, you know, what if I took too much? Am I gonna die? You know, is this gonna change me forever? And eventually, you know, those questions are like the normal things you would think that people would probably be worried about if they're freaking out on a trip, you know? But I didn't realize like how these questions would morph into these other questions that just slowly were getting closer and closer to things that I never confronted, things that I always pushed away from myself, things that I was always in control of how I felt about, at least to some extent. So eventually questions like, did I do too much, eventually morphed into, did I do enough? And you know, at the time I would keep lying myself, keep telling myself that, you know, I'm just a recreational drug user, I'm just using it for fun. But it was this acid trip that really opened my eyes to that kind of thing. You know, I started thinking to myself, did I do enough? And at the time I didn't think much of it, but you know, thinking back on it now, I just like, it just dawned on me that, you know, the reason I was asking myself, did I do enough, is because I was still thinking of all my past guilts, all my past evils that I've always just ignored and moved past, instead of sitting down and working out what the core problem was. When I say that acid puts you in forced meditation, I cannot exaggerate enough how much I mean that in its literal sense. It sits down and it tosses you into your own mind through every door, whether you like it or not. So whatever you've been repressing, whatever you've been, you know, pushing away, whatever feelings you've been drowning away, everything, it kind of just made me think about all of that. And when you think about it, you feel it, you relive those things. You know, there's a reason why some people repress those things, because they don't want to be feeling or thinking about those things. Even if in most cases it's a lot healthier to do so. So at this particular time, there was one evil that, although had not quite started recently, was an evil I had only recently begun feeling guilty about as I guess matured. And that evil, if you didn't already get the grasp from the pictures I put back there, with the fact that I had been cheating on my ex. But don't jump your horses, that's another video. Relax, it's in a series. That was probably one of the main things on my mind. And what I would usually tell myself to run away from the guilt or the bad that I was doing, to just run away from it and not feel bad about it, I would tell myself, well, you know, what they don't know can't hurt them. I was an expert liar. I was very, very good at manipulation. So, you know, not to sound cocky or arrogant or anything, but if I wanted to, you know, that evil or that sin would have never been revealed to the people I wouldn't have wanted it revealed to. And of course, you know, it was just, it was the perfect balance, you know, as long as, you know, the people who are going to be hurt by it don't find out, then doing it isn't necessarily a bad thing. And, you know, that is just very immature, very inconsistent logic, but it's the logic that I used to absolve myself. So that's how I thought normally. Now on acid, once again, acid completely breaks up and changes the way you think. That compared with my maturing, like, I want to say sense of empathy or sympathy, just me maturing, period. It was slowly I was slowly coming to the realization that, you know, it is most certainly unjustifiable to still be in this relationship and not have this person know that I've cheated on them. Mind you, this was a realization I was already developing, which is kind of why I wanted to, I guess, to this day, I still honestly, with all the lies I've told and all the different stories I've put together, I can't remember in all honesty whether or not I had already come to this realization and I was just too scared to move forward and eat the repercussions that were surely going to be on their way when I had finally revealed that information, or if I was still learning and I simply was getting scared of the conclusion that I was getting to. The reason I say it like that is because thinking back, I most certainly know that one of my bigger motivations for wanting to get something harder than weed or liquor was I wanted something that was gonna be more effective at keeping me distracted. Basically keeping me so infatuated with a new perception of reality that I didn't have time, care, or just cognivity to think about anything else or to feel bad about anything else. Back on track though. So these nagging thoughts that I was talking about, they were things like, you know, I was just thinking a lot of like really dark shit. Like, it was almost like LSD birthed a second voice in my head. Just one of like one that was a lot less susceptible to the manipulation that I put myself under. It was almost as if like the way I really felt was awakened and just unchained by LSD. It's like the second voice in my head, it was just going constantly. It was like, you're a piece of shit, you know? It would just say it like, it would just keep going through shit like that. Like, you're a cheater, you're scum, you're disloyal, nobody can trust you, you're a piece of shit, you deserve to die. That boy loves you and you're hurting him. I couldn't stop those thoughts, and that's what began to drive me crazy. It didn't matter how much I put my head back down. It didn't matter what video I tried to watch, what song I tried to listen to. It would just be these feelings of dread, fear, depression, anxiety, and just disappointment. It was like a numb blackness. Like I just felt like I fucked up eternally and there was no next move. It was like underneath this high, I truly realized the gravity of what living this lie has now brought me into. And I knew what I was doing was bad, yet because of my fucked up morals, I just went through with it and then lied to myself to not make myself feel bad. Like I was just starting to realize all of that, and it just made me feel so disgusted with myself, and it just made me feel so sad, and just these incredible feelings that anytime I had ever felt these before, I just used to push them away. I'd be like, oh fuck it, I'm gonna go smoke and stream, or you know, I'll go fucking play a game, I'll hit up Armani, I'll just smoke and do something, really, watch some anime, distract myself, you know. Smoking was the initial distractor. I'd get high and then it would make all of my other distractors that much more distracting, you know. But with acid had the completely opposite effect. It made me focus on myself. It made me focus on just me. And it just, like, no matter how bad I tried to fall asleep, no matter how I tried to watch a video, listen to music, play a game, something. And, you know, to be fair, those things were already pretty difficult to do in any capacity that could actually distract me, because I was, you know, obviously high as fuck off 1 milligram. But the other reason was because, like, I couldn't focus for 2 seconds before my mind would just tell me something like, you've been repressing this and not feeling bad for how long now?
Life is so boring. Why don't you just fucking overdose on something already? Content sucks. No wonder nobody followed you from RuneScape. You'd be tripping balls before you die. Someday, none of them will need you. So why be here? You're so useless.
Acid also brought me to my internalized issues, and issues I just kept pushing deeper and deeper inside of me. My insecurities, you know, my inability to be proud of my work, the fact that I literally strive to be told that what I'm doing is worth it, rather than feeling or recognizing the value myself, you know. It just took me through every issue with myself, morally, emotionally, and mentally, that I was repressing instead of working on. If you guys were with me long enough, you'll know this is something that I always used to say, okay? Always used to go on about how I can't relate to a depressed person, how I have a lot of depressed people in my life, but I can't necessarily relate to them because I'm a happy person. I have no reason to be depressed. And that's what I told myself, so that was my reality. I wasn't aware until the day that I had done acid that I was even lying about any of that, that I was repressing so much shit in my life that, you know, that it was damaging, like seriously damaging. You know, I would go out throughout this acid trip, you know, floating along throughout my house from my bed to my shower, back to my bed, to go back and sit down at my computer. It just got really worrying because I noticed that like I would just be having these thoughts of like harming myself or, you know, killing myself, and not in those traditional ways, you know, which is why it might have taken me a little while to realize. But I started actually rationalizing doing actual hard drugs, you know. I just start thinking like all the different ways I could have the most fun, and then have that fun end off with the most painless death ever, you know? And at the time I was just like, okay, I'm high, I'm thinking a lot of weird shit, I'm not gonna dwell on it. It wasn't until after that acid trip I realized that, you know, those thoughts were connected to, you know, my feelings of inadequacy, you know, inferiority,
just not belonging, loneliness, just a lot of shit that I didn't even know was there to be working on in the first place. You know, I had already set up so many subconscious barriers. It was just a fucking mess. There's no way I could have known it was there. And acid just looked at all those subconscious barriers I put up, and it just shoved a good old fucking middle finger through all of it. You know, and I might have focused a little too much on the X thing, since there's gonna be a video detailing that specifically, but really the most memorable part of this acid trip was laying down in my bed and just having those really, really depressing thoughts cross my mind.
Action bitch about me, I be geeking off the ecstasy. Back at it, shit's called a tractor boy, not for nothing.
So to go ahead and make a long story short, if you couldn't follow that 30-minute long fucking mess, I'm sure it was. The reason why my first acid trip, why I believe that to be the most pivotal moment in the beginning of my journey on evolving beyond myself, beyond my just lackluster in every aspect I can imagine character, it would be because this acid trip really opened my eyes as to how I was manipulating myself. And I think that was the person I worked hardest to manipulate out of all the people I've manipulated and out of all the lies I've told. I don't think I put in any greater effort than in lying to myself. And you hear it a lot. You hear it a lot. You know, like a person will tell a lie so much that they begin to believe in it. It is very true. I believed truly I was happy. I believed truly I had nothing to be upset about. I believed truly that the world, you know, had no beef with me. Like, you know, I was chilling. But no, was not the case as acid would have shown me. And I think that's why this is my most pivotal moment, because if I did not have that experience, it would have been so easy to continue life just lying the way that I was, you know? And that sounds so weird and so scary to say. If I did not partake in this illicit substance, I would very likely still be that same scumbag piece of shit. And that is, I mean, I don't want to say it's scary, but it's something, you know? I can't find the fucking words for it right now. It really is something. If you guys want a video detailing my acid trip, simply just like as I was living through it, you know, looking at all the pretty colors and thinking about all the weird feelings it was making me feel, you can go ahead and request that. But again, for the sake of this series, I wanted to focus on how acid forced me into changing my thinking habits, or rather confronting what I was already subconsciously feeling and thinking about. Go ahead and leave me feedback in the comments. It is highly appreciated. Please, 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 please tell me what I can do better. Tell me what I've already done good this video, and you know, just leave some overall feedback. It does help me grow and it does help me improve these videos. Even if you think you're leaving obvious feedback, believe me, I go through these videos 150 times before you guys get the first view, and there are still mistakes I overlook. So even if you think it's the simplest thing ever, you don't know how much you could be helping me by leaving that comment. On that note, guys, this is going to be the end of chapter 1 in this little multi-chapter series. I'm gonna go ahead and catch you guys on the next one, which will be uploading, I don't know whenever I finish it. Can, however, tell you that the next upload is most likely going to be gameplay, so gonna be a little less serious of a mood. But no, seriously, on that note, guys, I love y'all, and I most certainly love myself. Y'all have an absolutely wonderful day and an even better tomorrow, guys. Mega T22. Nani? Ty, the motherfucking Brooklyn nerd, is out. I'll catch y'all on the next one.
I'ma just blast at these niggas and fuck on these bitches. The homies put dick in the mouth. Ayy, running through bands and counting these checks like get me a crib in the south. I just be making it heat and dropping them hits. My brother, there's never a drought. The drip is forever. I oozing this shit. Niggas be towing the grip without using a bitch. Bitch, they for